In this week's article, I go back and I finally name those two nutrients I mentioned about a month ago, or before I started shaving my head, that are critical to nitrogen management. And what they are, they're potassium and sulfur. They're really important to the corn plant for a couple different reasons. They're really important to nitrogen management for the same reason. They're difficult to manage for two different reasons. Hi, I'm Mike Zwingman, Agronomy R&D Manager for Central Valley Ag. This is your Monday Agronomy Update video that coincides with the Reach Out article on the CVA blog site. So, the first nutrient we're going to talk about is potassium. Potassium is important to the nitrogen management because it's really what gets nitrogen into the plant. It helps with that enzyme regulation that helps pull nitrogen in the plant. And then once it's inside the plant, potassium is critical for that nitrogen reduction or assimilation of nitrogen within the photosynthetic cycle and the regulation of the glutamine and glutamate cycle. What this does is it helps us get that nitrogen to the plant usable form, and later on in the growing season, potassium is what helps us elevate that nitrogen up into the plant, from down below the stalk all the way up to the ear during that grain fill period. When we have nitrogen and we don't have enough potassium, we can't move it to where it needs to go. Perfect example of this is you're out towards the end of the year, right before harvest, and you're taking tissue samples. If you went and shelled an ear, took an ear leaf tissue sample, and took a stock nitrate test, there's times you would find you have plenty of nitrate down in the bottom, you don't have hardly any nitrogen up in the grain, and you're deficient in the ear leaf. What happened is we didn't have enough potassium to elevate that nitrogen up and get it where the plant needed it to finish off your yield. Sulfur, on the other hand, is also important to the assimilation process. It's also important to the formation of proteins and amino acids. So when we don't have enough sulfur, we can't use nitrogen to the level we need to. So we need to manage nitrogen, potassium, and sulfur all together to maximize your yield potential. The reason why they're difficult are two separate things. In potassium's case, it's really the soil doesn't want to give it up when we need it the most. When soils are cool and dry or warm and wet, we have some problems when it comes to potassium release. We need the right amount of moisture and just the right amount of temperature to get those soil colloids to open up in the clay particles and release that potassium out. Once that potassium is available to the plant, we can take it in and use nitrogen more efficiently. The problem is that particular case doesn't happen as often as it should. That's why applied potassium is one of the things we need to talk about, and the timing of that applied potassium when we really want to manage that most efficiently. Sulfur kind of comes from we don't have sulfur in the atmosphere anymore. We don't burn the sulfur in the diesel like we used to. We're not getting as much sulfur from rainfall, so we rely on the sulfur from the organic matter that's released out of the carbon cycle. Sometimes that's not enough, or it's not the right time, or some combination of the two. So we need to start thinking about sulfur applications when we're applying nitrogen. We're going to talk more about the applications of sulfur and potassium down the road. We're going to talk more about how they're going to help us increase our nitrogen efficiency, and we're going to talk more about how that's going to work as a systems approach for you in the future. As always, be safe. We'll see you next week.